Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia and today we're going to be going over some upcoming releases. In particular, I'm going to go over some of the physical ARCs that I received from the publisher, as well as some of the ARCs that I have on NetGalley that I will be reading and reviewing later on the channel. And that way you'll know of some really cool books coming up this coming year and also see what reviews will be coming up on my channel. So with that, let's get into the video. So I do want to start off with physical ARCs. Let's start off with the first one. This is going to be All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. Here we go. It's very tiny. So on sale June 6th of 2023. I am so freaking excited for this book. I ended up reading Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby last year, I believe. God, it was so addicting. It was fast-paced, it was compelling, had high stakes, it was gritty, it had morally gray but very lovable characters. So I can't freaking wait for this one. So the synopsis for this book goes, Titus Crone is the first Black sheriff in the history of Charron County. A former FBI agent and security expert, Titus came home to take care of his father and look out for his troubled young brother. He ran for sheriff to make a difference, especially in the Black community, which has so often been treated unfairly by the police. But a year to the day after his election, a school shooting rocks the town. A beloved teacher is killed by a former student, and as Titus attempts to de-escalate and get the boy to surrender, his deputies fire a fatal shot. In the investigation, it becomes clear that the student they shot had been abused by the dead teacher, as well as by unidentified perpetrators. The trail leads to buried bodies and secrets. While Titus tries to track down a killer hiding in plain sight, while balancing daily duties like protecting Confederate pride marches, he must face what it means to be a Black man wearing a police uniform in the American South. Wow, okay, I actually didn't have any idea what this book was about. I just knew that it was S.A. Cosby, and really that's all that I needed to know. I will be picking up every single book he writes, unless he majorly disappoints me, which I don't know if he can. But this sounds like it's also going to be an equally compelling book. And I love that it deals with that gray area of being in a position of power that often targets Black Americans as a Black man himself. I think this is going to be really freaking good and I can't wait to read it. I'm actually going to Arizona next week, so I think this is going to be one of the books that I'll be bringing with me. The next ARC that I received is Queen of Exiles. This is by Vanessa Riley. And this is a historical fiction book. It is going to be published, let's see, so bad at finding the publishing dates. This is going to be published July of 2023. And isn't this cover just beautiful? I love this like lilac purple. So the synopsis goes, in 1820, King Henry is overthrown, and Louise and her daughters flee to Europe. In exile, the resilient Louise redefines her role, recovering the fortune that Henry had lost and establishing herself as an equal to the kings of European nations. With newspapers and gossip tracking their every movement, Louise and her daughters tour Europe like other royals, complete with glittering balls and princess with marriage proposals. As they find their footing and acceptance, they discover more about themselves, their Blackness, and the opportunity that they can grasp in a European and male-dominated world. Queen of Exiles is the tale of a remarkable Black woman, a canny and bold survivor who chooses the fire of political struggle and then is forced to rebuild her life on her own terms, forever a queen. That sounds really, really good. I haven't read anything by Vanessa Riley, but I have been getting back into my historical fiction kick, so I feel like this is going to be a perfect book for me to pick up in the summer. So hopefully I'll read it sometime in May or early June. That way I have a review for y'all in July before it's published. The next and last ARC that I received is called The Memory of Animals by Claire Fuller. And this is just a freaking stunning cover. This is going to be published also on June 6th of 2023. And this is actually being published by a local publisher here called Tin House. They're located in Portland, Oregon, so in the Pacific Northwest, exactly where I'm from. So I'm really excited that I was able to get this and just highlight some of the books that they're publishing. I think they're awesome. So the synopsis says, In the face of a pandemic, an unprepared world scrambles to escape the mysterious disease causing sensory damage, nerve loss, and in most cases, death. Neffy, a disgraced and desperately indebted 27-year-old marine biologist, registers for an experiment vaccine trial in London, perhaps humanity's last hope for a cure. Though isolated from the chaos outside, she and the other volunteers, Rachel, Leon, Yahiko, and Piper, cannot hide from the mistakes that led them there. As London descends into chaos outside the hospital windows, Neffy befriends Leon, who before the pandemic had been working on a controversial technology that allows users to revisit their memories. The lines between past, present, and future begin to blur, and Neffy is left with defining questions. Who can she trust? Why can't she forgive herself? And how should she live if she survives? Very interesting. For some reason, I thought it had to do something with animals, whatever. Anyways, yeah, this sounds really interesting. It is a pandemic book, which I know is a hit or miss for people at this point in time. I don't mind pandemic books, and I love books that deal with memory. So I think this is going to be a good one. So I actually went on a requesting spree on NetGalley a couple of months back. So I do have quite a few books on this list, and there's way too many of them. So I'm actually going to only talk about the books that are in my give feedback portion of NetGalley. There's 9 books that I have approved that I haven't started reading. There are 4 books that I will be talking to you about that are in my give feedback portion, which means that they've been sent to my Kindle already for me to start reading. Now, I've only started reading 1 of the 4 books that I'm going to mention, but I will be reading the other 3 within the coming weeks. So why don't we talk about them in publication order? The first book on this list, which is actually the book that I'm currently reading, is called Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea, and this is by Rita, Chang, Eppig. And this book will be published May 30th of 2023, so in just about a month. And I'm actually quite really enjoying it. When I first read the synopsis on Goodreads, it was compared to Piranesi, which is a book that I absolutely adore, and The Night Tiger, which I haven't read. Now, I don't quite see the references to Piranesi yet. I just started it. I'm about 10% in. And I haven't read other seafaring books, but what I think it is similar to is Tress of the Emerald Sea and The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. But the reason that I'm saying they're similar is because Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea takes place out in the ocean. It is a seafaring adventure with tons of politics, and I really like our main character. So let me go ahead and read you the synopsis. It says, when Shuk Young sees a Portuguese sailor slay her husband, a feared pirate, she knows she must act swiftly or die. Instead of mourning, Shuk Young launches a new plan, immediately marrying her husband's second in command and agreeing to bear him a son and heir in order to retain power over half of the fleet. But as Shek Young vies for control over the army she knows she was born to lead, larger threats loom. The Chinese emperor has charged a brutal, crafty nobleman with ridding the South China Seas of pirates, and the Europeans, tired of losing ships, men, and money to Shek Young's alliance, have new plans for the area. Even worse, Shek Young's cutthroat retributions create problems all their own. As Shek Young navigates new motherhood and the crisis of leadership, she must decide how long she is willing to fight, and at what price, or risk losing her fleet, her new family, and even her life. Like I mentioned, I'm just about 10% in, and this is not a spoiler, it happens right at the beginning, right in chapter 1. Her husband does die, but we haven't gotten to the part that is mentioned in the synopsis where she marries the second in command. The book actually takes you to her childhood and how she came to join this pirate ship. So I'm still right at the beginning where there's a lot of character development going on. I will say that I was extremely giddy reading this book because it has a lot of references to like Chinese food and a lot of cities and stuff like that, and Ben is Chinese, and a lot of the foods that are mentioned I'm like, oh, I know about those because I've eaten them because of Ben, or he talks about them and I'm like, hey, that was that one thing you were talking about. So it's really cool to see it in the book. So yes, anyways, that is Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea. The next book that I'm going to talk to you about is The Wind Knows My Name. This is by Isabel Allende, and it is going to be published June 6th of 2023. This is also a translated novel. It's translated from the Spanish. Does it say by who? It doesn't say by who, but I will leave that information in the description box. So, this is going to be the second book by Isabel Allende that I read. My personal introduction to Isabel Allende was Violeta, which was her last published book, which I also read as a NetGalley ARC and ended up loving so much that I went out and purchased my own copy. So that is upstairs. So I'm hoping that I love this one just as much. So the synopsis for this one says, Vienna, 1938. Samuel Adler is 5 years old when his father disappears during Kristallnacht, the night his family loses everything. As her child's safety becomes ever harder to guarantee, Samuel's mother secures a spot for him on a Kinder transport train out of the Nazi-occupied Austria to England. He boards alone, carrying nothing but a change of clothes and his violin. Arizona, 2019. 8 decades later, Anita Diaz and her mother board another train, fleeing looming danger in El Salvador and seeking refuge in the United States. But their arrival coincides with a new family separation policy, and 7-year-old Anita finds herself alone at a camp in Nogales. She escapes her tenuous reality through her trips to Asa Bahar, a magical world of the imagination. Meanwhile, Selena Duran, a young social worker, enlists the help of a successful lawyer in hopes of tracking down Anita's mother. Intertwining past and present, The Wind Knows My Name tells the tale of these two unforgettable characters, both in search of family and home. I feel like this is gonna be such a gut-wrenching read and really powerful. I think Isabel Allende is a powerful storyteller, and I love how she's contrasting these two separate time periods. You know, currently the migration of a lot of Latin American people who are fleeing violence going north is a really big topic around the Latinx community and also within politics in the United States right now. So I feel like this is going to be a very heart-wrenching, possibly difficult book to read at times, but I'm confident in her storytelling, so I can't wait to read it. The next book on this list is Save What's Left. This is by Elizabeth Castellano, and the publication date is June 27 of 2023. So this one, I believe, is another contemporary fiction book. I actually have no idea what this book is about, and this is going to be my first book by Elizabeth Castellano. But when I requested it, I remember that the synopsis really stood out to me. I just can't remember what that is, so I'm going to read it to you. I just read the first sentence of the synopsis and I remember why I requested it. So this was giving Finley Donovan vibes. It seems like it's going to be this outrageous situation and things are just not going well for our main character. So I wanted more books that give off that vibe and that feeling, and that's why I requested it. So it says, when Kathleen Dean's husband, Tom, tells her he's no longer happy with his life and their marriage, Kathleen is confused. They live in Kansas. They've been married 30 years. Who said anything about being happy? But with Tom off finding himself, Kathleen starts to think about what she wants, and her thoughts lead her to a small beach community on the East Coast, a town called Whitby that has always looked lovely in the Christmas letters her childhood friend Josie sends her every year. It turns out, though, that life in Whitby is nothing like Josie's letters. Kathleen's new neighbor, Rosary, is cantankerous. That's a great word, cantankerous. And the town supervisor won't return Kathleen's emails. But worst of all is the Sugar Cube, the monstrosity masquerading as a holiday home that Kathleen's absentee neighbors are building next door to her quaint, tiny cottage. As Kathleen gets more and more involved in the fight against the Sugar Cube and town politics overall, she realizes that Whitby may not be a fairy tale, but it might just be exactly what she needed. I just feel like this is going to be the perfect summer read, and hopefully it's just as funny and outrageous as Finley Donovan was, because I need similar books to that. So the last and final book that I'm going to talk about today is Silver Nitrate. This is by Silvia Moreno Garcia, The Gift That Keeps on Giving, and this is going to be published July 18th of 2023. Now, I don't know what this falls under. NetGalley says horror, mystery, thrillers, sci-fi, fantasy. So I'm guessing it's like a dark fantasy book. Montserrat has always been overlooked. Montserrat, I love that name. She's a talented sound editor, but she's left out of the boys club running the film industry in 90s Mexico City. And she's all but invisible to her best friend, Tristan, a charming but faded soap opera star, though she's been in love with him since childhood. Then Tristan discovers his new neighbor is the cult horror director Abel Urrieta, and the legendary author claims he can change their lives, even if his tale of a Nazi oculist imbuing magic into highly volatile silver nitrate stock sounds like sheer fantasy. That was a mouthful of a sentence. The magic film was never finished, which is why Urrieta swears his career vanished overnight. He is cursed. Now the director wants Montserrat and Tristan to help him shoot the missing scene and lift the curse. But Montserrat soon notices a dark presence following her, and Tristan begins seeing the ghost of his ex-girlfriend. As they work together to unravel the mystery of the film and the obscure occultist who once roamed their city, Montserrat and Tristan may find that sorcerers and magic are not the only stuff of movies. I mean, what more can you say? This sounds really good. I feel like this sounds perfect for a movie adaptation. I've been thinking about Silvia Moreno Garcia's works and which ones would be best suited for film. I would love to see one of her books being adapted to a show or a movie, and I think this is perfect for a movie. So those are all of the books that I wanted to talk about today. These are some of the upcoming books that I will be reading and reviewing, so stay tuned for them. Let me know down below if you're interested in any of them or if you're planning on picking them up yourselves. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.